Hi, guys. Just wanted to share this with you. This is a little kind of in depth discussion, I guess, about the First Amendment. And since my channel has a lot to do with that, I thought it would be appropriate to post this. Uh, there's some discussion later on in that I'm going to go into on it, and that's other people's opinions, but I think they're valid and would love to hear what you think about this and what your thoughts and opinions are. And at the end of the video, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and have a good day. Okay, this is the First Amendment: freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. Passed by Congress September 25th, 1789, ratified December 15th, 1791. The first 10 amendments from the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And then I'll post a link down below if you want to read these other things. This one, top one, is on religion. And let's look at the interpretations of free exercise clause. Okay, this one is about religion. I was wrong about the first one. So let's look at this one. Okay, I take it back. That one's about religion, and I'm not going to get into the religious part of it. I'm not a religious person. That's for each person to decide on their own. So let's go back to this one. Okay, free exercise clause, and these two people up here, Frederick Geddicks and Michael McConnell. This is what they wrote, I guess. Many settlers from Europe braved the hardships of immigration to American colonies to escape their religious prosecutions. Okay, I was right. That one was about religion too. So let's skip that one. Let's go to, this is the one. These two here is what I want to focus on. Sorry, I should have been a little more prepared now. I read all this through once, but now, oh well. One take. Congress shall make no laws abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. And the press is us. What does this mean today? Generally speaking, this means that the government may not jail, fine, impose civil liability on people or organizations based on what they say or write, except in exceptional circumstances. Although the First Amendment says Congress, the Supreme Court has held that speakers are protected against all government agencies and officials, federal, state, and local, and legislative, executive, or judicial. The First Amendment does not protect speakers, however, against private individuals or organizations, such as private employers, private colleges, private landowners. The First Amendment retains only the government. So that's pretty important. You hear people say all the time, I have a right to free speech. Well, you do have a right to free speech against, what did this just say up here? Against all government agencies and officials, federal, state, and local, and legislative, executive, or judicial. That doesn't mean that I say things about you. You are not those things that just listed. So understand what free speech means. Free speech is meant for us to use, to have a voice either with or against the government. And mainly it's protecting against, because no one cares if you're giving them attaboys, right? No, I don't think anyone gets thrown in jail for saying you did a good job. So let's go on a little more. The Supreme Court has interpreted speech in press broadly as covered not only talking, writing, printing, but also broadcasting using the internet and other forms of expression. The freedom of speech also applies to symbolic expression, such as displaying flags, burning flags, wearing armbands, burning crosses, and the like. Flipping the middle finger is one they didn't list. The Supreme Court has held that restrictions on speech because of its content, that is, when the government targets the speaker's message, generally violate the First Amendment. Laws that prohibit people from criticizing a war, opposing abortion, or advocating high taxes are examples of unconstitutional content-based restrictions. Such laws are thought to be especially problematic because they distort public debate and contradict a basic principle of self-governance, that the government cannot be trusted to decide what ideas or information the people should be allowed to hear. There are generally three situations in which government can constitutionally restrict speech under a less demanding standard. 1. The circumstances. The Supreme Court has held that certain types of free speech are only low First Amendment values, such as A. Defamation, false statements. The demand that damages a person's reputation can lead to civil liability and even criminal punishment, especially when the speaker deliberately lied or said things they knew were likely false. And then there's a link in here. And B, true threats. Threats to commit a crime, for example, I'll kill you if you don't give me your money, can be punished. C, fighting words. Face-to-face personal insults that are likely to lead to intimidate, fight, are punishable. But this does not include political statements that offends others and provokes them to violence. For example, civil rights or anti-abortionist protests cannot be silenced merely because passerbyers respond violently to their speech. B, obscenity. Hardcore, highly sexual, explicit pornography is not protected by the First Amendment. Miller versus California in 1973. In practice, however, the government rarely prosecutes online distributors of such material. E, child pornography. Photographs or videos involving actual children engaging in sexual content are punishable because allowing such materials would create incentive to sexually abuse children in order to produce sexual material. New York versus Ferber, 1982. So yes, someone actually tried to defend that. Commercial advertising. Free speech advertising a product or services is constitutionally protected, but not as much as other speech. For instance, the government may ban misleading commercial advertising, but it generally can't ban misleading political speech. Yes, because pretty much all political speech is bullshit and a lie, so if they banned that, the politicians wouldn't be able to say anything, huh? Outside these narrow categories of low-value speech, most other content-based restrictions on speech are presumptively unconstitutional. Even entertainment, vulgarity, hate speech, bigoted speech about particular races, religions, sexual orientations, and the like, blasphemy, speech that offends people's religious sensibilities, and violent video games are protected by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has generally been very reluctant to expand the list of low-value categories of speech. The government can restrict speech under a less demanding standard when the speaker is in a special relationship to the government. For example, the speech of government employees and the students in public schools can be restricted even based on their content when their speech is incompatible with their status as public officials or students. A teacher in a public school, for example, can be punished for encouraging students to experiment with illegal drugs, and a government employee who has access to classified information generally can be prohibited from disclosing the information. The government can also restrict speech under a less demanding standard when it does so with regarding the content or message of the speech. Content neutral restrictions such as restrictions on noise, blocking traffic, and large signs which can distract drivers and clutter the landscape are generally constitutional as long as they are reasonable. Because such laws apply neutrally to all speakers without regard to their message, they are less threatened to the core First Amendment concern that government should not be permitted to favor some ideas over others. Turner Broadcasting System Incorporated versus FCC 1994. But not all content neutral restrictions are viewed as reasonable. For example, a law prohibiting all demonstrations in public parks or all leafletting on public streets would violate the First Amendment. Courts have not always been this protective of free expression. In the 19th century, for example, courts allowed punishment of blasphemy, and discouraged, and during a, let me start over. Courts allowed punishment of blasphemy, and shortly after World War I, the Supreme Court held that speech tending to promote crime, such as speech condemning the military draft or praising anarchism, could be punished. Moreover, it was not until 1925 the Supreme Court held that the First Amendment limited state and local governments as well as the federal government. But starting in 1920, the Supreme Court began to read the First Amendment more broadly. And this trend accelerated in the 1960s. Today, the legal protection offered by the First Amendment is stronger than ever before in our history. So there's quite a bit of information in that, and I would encourage people to study this. I mean, every day it's misquoted. When you say, even in like our silly little YouTube streams, well, I guess they're not silly little YouTube streams, but in the streams where people say, "Oh, I thought you was about free speech," because they get their comment blocked because they said something this disrupts the stream. That has nothing to do with free speech, and it has everything to do with that person spouting off and trying to distract whoever and whatever from what their goal of their stream is. So anyway, and there's lots of other good information there. And let's go back and read this bottom one. You know what? I think I'll just save that one for a different time. This one's already getting kind of long, and I think that kind of summed up what I wanted to get at with reading this. And once again, if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do. And please leave comments. I enjoy reading everyone's comments. I don't care if they're negative or positive. Just it's all good to me. I do like the comments. And everyone have a good day. Bye.